Right, okay, I've got another one for you. So, I know I caught some of your earlier interview, your podcast, and where you were talking about people that had put on so much weight that their movement was restricted, and that then obviously their internal organs are suffering. They're creating illness at this point because their organs are crushed.
Sorry.
Bless you. There's excess fat. The heart can't move so well, and things like that. So that by through overeating to, I don't know what the scale of it is. There a scale of obesity? But to the very, when you're talking about people weighing 500 pounds, that's more than just overweight.
Oh God, that's morbidly
obese. Yeah,
beyond morbidly obese.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the terminology would be. So now, bear with me. I know before you jump off down the deep end.
What are you trying to say?
I know it's very emotive. Now, so whether it's through a physical addiction, say to the additives and the chemicals that are in the food, and or depression, and or the more they weigh, the less they can physically move. People then are now in a position where they're eating themselves into literally physically can't move and illness, and then a lot of them are facing death, aren't they? Diagnosis.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, someone with anorexia that starves themselves to the same point, but ironically opposite ends of they have so little resources in their body that their heart's going to fail, because when you have anorexia, so your muscle wastage is the muscle's the last thing to go because you haven't got protein, so you eat away at your own heart muscle, and they have heart failure and other health issues. Someone with that stage of anorexia can be certified and put into a centre where they can't leave, and they're force fed. Could you imagine for someone on the other end scale that's morbidly obese being certified, contained to a bed within a ward, and being forcibly food restricted until they reach the point where they can move, and they have their food monitored, and they have to report back, and they have to have a psychologist. It just struck me today that I know that happens on that end of the scale, because they say they're committed because they're psychologically damaging themselves through lack of food and creating illness that could result in their death. Apply the same criteria to someone at the other end.
Well, it's the same, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying now.
Abuse through food or lack of food.
Yes, but does that ever happen? Do they ever?
I don't think you could.
I think there'd be uproar. I think that if people said, you're too overweight, we're going to commit you to a psychiatric ward and confine you to that bed and forcibly remove food from you until you've lost so much weight, X amount of weight, and you're eating better habits, and then we're going to release you under the threat that if you go back to the old habits, we'll recommit you. I think that would...
It's a terrible contradiction, because it's really the same.
Yes.
It's really the same. So why should it be any different? If we've got those rules for people who have got anorexia, why are we treating them differently?
Yes.
So there's a stigma, because it's exactly the same, just both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, one's through lack of food and one's through excess food. Now, the emotional and psychological
are the same.
Behind that is, it's control, and it's numbing, is the same. So yes, that struck me today, that if they do that for people with anorexia, and I haven't heard of it, but I don't know. I think if it, you know, if they did that for people that were morbidly obese, I think there would be an uproar. But I don't know.
Well, I've never heard of anything like that happening, but I don't know if you've ever watched a program called My £600 Life. You probably won't have done, because if it's not relevant, I doubt anybody's going to watch it. So it's about people who have got up to £600. That's huge. Is that 30 or 40 stone? It's massive, isn't it? And so far they've all been in America, the programs, but there's a guy, there's an American, he's not American, he lives in America, but I can't remember where he's from. Dr. No, they call him. He's Dr. Nahas or something like that, but they call him Dr. No. And he treats like the worst of obesity, 600 pounds odd. And those people are going to die. So he takes them on, and he gets them to a stage where they've got to lose a little bit of weight first. He puts them in an apartment, and they're allowed to have one person with them, and then he monitors them, and they have to come to the hospital and get weighed in, and they've got to weigh a certain amount, lose a certain amount. I think it's 50 pounds he makes them lose before he'll even consider them for surgery.
But if you can get them to lose 50 pounds, why not just carry on with that?
Because they won't. They put it back on again.
Yeah, but that's the thing of, if you're capable of doing that, keep going, sunshine.
That's right. They're doing it to get the surgery. That's why they're doing it, just for that outcome. But then sometimes he will put them up somewhere, get them to say, well, you've got to lose another 50 pounds, or you've got to lose another 30 pounds, and then I'll do the surgery. And then if he won't give them it. But even after surgery, sometimes they start to put weight back on again. So he has them in the hospital, and he does exactly what you said. He restricts their eating. He makes them get out of bed. And the fights he has with these people are unbelievable. They refuse. They say they can't walk and all the rest of it. And they cry and they scream and they call him all the names under the sun. And what I like about him is he's rigid. And he tells them exactly how it is. You are going to die. You are killing yourself and you're going to die. So that's the nearest thing I've seen is someone doing that. But they can walk off at any point, or not walk off, but be hauled off somewhere, because they have to use them big, like, bloody crane things, like a big hammock thing to move some people.
I mean, I know it's potentially more labour intensive to do that, but and it doesn't work with anorexics either. They leave and then they'll stop eating. It doesn't fix their head. But I just thought it was very interesting that they don't treat, I would say, the same condition effectively.
Yeah, it is. It's an eating disorder. Where you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
No, it's weird, isn't it? Why? I'm trying to figure out why they would do one end of the spectrum and not the other end.
Yeah.
Why is it all right to treat a very thin person that way, but not to treat a big person that way? That's almost slanted towards the big person.
Definitely anorexia I think they do class it as a disease, which might be the difference. Although I don't actually think it's a disease, it's a psychological disorder, but that's my opinion. So they do class it as a disease, and maybe that's the difference.
It's still a disorder.
Yeah, I think it is.
Can kill you.
Both the same.
Both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So what I can't get over is, why are they treating them differently, and why
that might be worth a little bit of
delving into.
It doesn't work. in a lot of cases, and it'll probably be the same for obesity. It will work for some and it won't work for the others, the same as bariatric surgery works for some and still doesn't work for others. I definitely think there needs to be more attempts at intervention before surgery, but proper.
Yes,
Not
half-assed.
Stop watching attempts.
No, not that, or not what happens now, which is a psychoelectric.
It's a new one.
It's a new thing I've just invented, psychological assessment. Because what I see in my group, which is hilarious, is that everybody tells each other how to get round the psychological assessment.
You kidding me?
No, they all go to each other. Well, if you answer these questions to these questions, then it's fine. Or they tell them, yeah, it was complete waste of time, isn't it? Complete waste of time. So they're really pulling the wool over their eyes. So,
but of themselves, like the people that won't get out of bed, they're only not helping themselves.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are people out there that physically can't get out of bed, but they did that. They got themselves to that stage. You know, why not stop? But then again, we're saying that, but if they asked for help and didn't get it, maybe they're the ones that have resigned themselves to die in their bed.
Yeah.
While getting people to bring the food to them. And I can't say anything. I mean, I stopped before I got to anywhere near that stage. I was always self-sufficient, but, you know, who knows where I could have ended up? I don't know.
Especially living with someone that enabled you.
Well, living with a feeder didn't help, did it? And the fact that my daughter used to call me a cuddly teddy bear, and she liked me being big. Not that it's her fault, but just, you know, surrounded by positive reinforcement of my size, you know?
Yeah. Well, then that's a very sort of fine line between being okay. There's nothing wrong with people being larger.
No.
It's that your perception of yourself you were not comfortable with.
Oh no, that's right. Like I never judge anybody else. Like if people are overweight and they're happy overweight and they're still healthy,
yeah,
I've got no opinion on that whatsoever. That's their lives. I am only opinionated when it comes to the misconceptions, and also when people are really fiercely unhealthy and going to hurt.
And I think that's where the interventions should happen at unhealthy.
Yeah, but like when they got, you know, type 2 diabetes and all this kind of stuff, and then they get the swelling. You know what I'm talking? Is it called elephantitis or something like that? There's you know, where they get the water retention, and then that causes such bad strain on all their body that then it goes septic and all that. It's awful, like the way it goes. So yes, I think there should be an intervention there. You know, people can't wash themselves and stuff like that because there's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you just watch one of them programs, you'd understand what I was saying. People have to have a carer because they can't get out of bed, so they have to have someone to wash them.
But that to me is a depression. It's a psychological not wanting to do it yourself. Kind of, you've given up. You're happy.
They physically can't though, Lisa.
There's a point where they've already decided that they're okay with someone coming in and washing their bits. That ain't happening to me unless it's a car accident. Or I'm telling you that now.
Yeah.
So they've decided that that's okay. And that's only okay because they've decided it. If they decided that's never happening to me, they would have got up and done it themselves and, you know, not eaten the food or moved more or whatever the thing is. You know, there's a point where they have decided that...
To give up.
Sorry?
To give up.
Yeah, to carry on with the behaviours that they want to do. They're going to accept this, to me, would be embarrassing and demeaning. And I'd...
Yeah.
Pride issue for me to look after myself. So, you know, they're already at that point needing help with whatever whether it's a depression or it's a lack of self-esteem or a lack of a will to live or whatever they need intervention before they get to that.
Yeah.
There should be, I think, alarm bells that say, hang on, so-and-so needs a carer because they can't get out of bed. Hang on a minute. Before we go down this route and enable them, let's get a physiotherapist over there. Let's not deliver them food other than X, Y, and Z calories, and a bit more physical reinforcement.
Well, this is what that Dr. No says. He brings the relatives in and he gives them a roasting as well. And he'll say to them, they can't get out of bed. You have gone and got their food.
Yeah.
You enabling them to be,
to
carry on with this thing. And you watch this program and you see people, then they blackmail their children. If their children dare to say, or whoever's caring for them, it could be a boyfriend, a husband, a child, or like as young as 7 or 8, caring for their own parent, but they manipulate them into going and getting that food.
Yeah.
As well. So if they got them at the stage where they're needing caring and then sent in not only a physiotherapist but a therapist that at that stage,
therapist and that's what I'm saying, that rather than just organising it, make an intervention.
Yeah.
Because they do at the other end of it. If an anorexic couldn't get out of bed, they would hospitalise them.
But do we have enough blooming therapists that know about this sort of stuff to be able to go and do that? If 63% of the population and it's growing and getting worse.
I don't know the actual stats, but I can tell you that when I first looked at this, when I was counselling for eating disorders, back in 2003, and I was looking at setting up a sort of day, what do they call it? Like someone comes to you for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not an overnight stay. A day centre more for people with eating disorders, where they would come and spend the day, and you'd work on all these different things, and you'd do art therapy and things like that. So I was looking at setting up somewhere like that. The nearest at that point eating disorder psychiatrist, there was only one, bearing in mind I was in Cornwall in St Ives. The nearest one was in Bristol. Not at Penzance Hospital, not at Trilliskin Truro, not at Plymouth, not at Exeter, Bristol. And they had a waiting list of 6 months before we could just get the first initial intake. And that was in 2003. So that was, eating disorders had obviously been around for a while then, and that's how I would say how important they were classified as. Now, I would assume that obesity would come under the same psychiatrist.
Then let me just tell you then, that place in Bristol, I'd love to know what it was called, because guess where I went? To a place in Bristol, which is why I just laughed when he said it. I did go down a lot of tracks before I went to weight loss surgery. So in about 2000-ish, 2001, I found a weight loss surgery clinic, and it was in Bristol. And because there was none for miles, there was one in London, there was one in Bristol, and Bristol was closer. And basically I went to this place, it cost you 200 quid, and I went to this like converted massive big Victorian house, which was called an eating disorders clinic, and you were there for 24 hours. And I was so looking forward to it, because I thought, oh, this is going to be a breakthrough for me, this is going to help me and all that. And when I got there, there was 2 anorexic girls. There was a girl who was didn't have an eating disorder. She had something wrong with her quite badly, and she had a tube up her nose, but she hadn't got an eating disorder. She had something wrong with her physically. And then there was a bigger girl, right? And so we were all lumped together in the same room. Well, how could that help? One therapist with all of us, how could that help? And we all had the classes together. There was no individual stuff. And that cost me 200 quid. And I remember driving away the next day. I stayed there overnight, and basically we had salad for tea. And then I drove away the next day, £200 lighter, and completely confused.
Oh, isn't that bonkers?
So they just lumped everybody together, you see.
And then there is that program. I've seen that program. It was on a few years ago, where they would put somebody that was obese with someone that was anorexic, and they'd spend this time together.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Channel 4, wasn't it? Yeah, I know what you mean.
That was quite interesting, but it was in a more supportive environment than what you've just described.
Yeah.
But, so, what I was sort of getting at was that back then, and that was 2003, which I would say was relatively recently, it's not 1960s, there was one. And that was in Bristol. So the whole of Devon and Cornwall and Somerset had one person, and that was in Bristol. That says to me how low on a priority it is.
Yeah.
So, if the obesity is as prevalent as those statistics would suggest, 63%, you would think that hospitals would be devoted half to that. Wouldn't you? Geared towards psychologists, psychiatrists, nutritionists, physiotherapists and gyms, specifically at reducing obesity because of all the other problems and symptoms and that people suffer from having that. So fixing that would save a lot of other things, I'm assuming. The diabetes would go down, depression should reduce, there'll be heart problems, there'll be dietary, like gut problems, there'll be physical problems like knees and hip replacements and things like that. So you think that would be at the forefront?
Yeah.
Why are we dishing out diabetes either side, insulin or the other way, if it's a weight issue?
Yeah.
Why are they not tackling the weight issue?
Because they're always firefighting and never preventing.
But I think people know, people know. So if it's the case of they know what's right, but they're not making the right decisions, then that's definitely a mental health issue.
Or it could be cultural as well, couldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, cultural pressure, peer pressure, family pressure, whatever. It could be partly that as well. So haven't we got to look at the whole thing, the holistic reason that people abuse anything, food, whatever, but in this case it's particularly food. So haven't we got to look at the whole thing and find out what the root causes are and fix that before this epidemic turns into before it gets even worse? Get to every single person. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked that 60. I mean, I have noticed that there are a lot more bigger people around. I have noticed that.
Historically, they say a lot of Americans are larger. So I think we're just following that way, aren't we?
Well, we do, don't we? We copy America. But I definitely have noticed that people are seem to be getting bigger. But I mean, when they say 63%, I'd like to know the breakdown of that. As an analyst, I'd like to know the bloody breakdown of that, because it could be when they say overweight or obese. For me, it's ridiculous to think that someone who's a size 12 some people consider that overweight, which is pathetic. So, I'd like to know what breakdown of that are actually severe obesity.
And the body mass index calculation doesn't apply, doesn't work.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. But I met with, old sister-in-law, not my old sister-in-law, but my ex-sister-in-law yesterday, and gorgeous girl, and not, she doesn't look overweight to me, but she's considered obese.
Really?
I'm just like,
there was, I think it was, say, in primary schools, children were having letters sent home going, your child is obese and they're going to contact social service, and the child wasn't, blatantly wasn't, just was tall and weighed around. My children have extremely heavy bones, and I know they say, oh, that's like, oh, I'm heavy bone. They literally do. He couldn't lift his leg now. He's 6 foot tall, and his legs are the longest part of him, and they're built solid. There's not an ounce of fat on him. But if you just took his,
his weight, they would say Ollie's overweight.
Put him in a swimming pool, he'll sink. But it's all bone.
Yeah. I know it worries me because they'd say Ollie was overweight, but he's built like his dad. He's got he's got muscles, like really muscly, but he's quite short. So like it's all condensed in a short space, but he's not. But they would say he was overweight.
Yeah.
And I'm very sensitive about it. Somebody called his best mate's the same weight as Ollie. Him and Alfie are the same weight. And one of the people at school called him Fatty the other day. Alfie, not Ollie. Ollie would have probably knocked him out. But he called out, like, that worries me. They're 7 years old. And they're already calling each other things like that. And then it's whether that gets in, and starts affecting them.
But I think, if we're going to talk about children, the parents are the ones that set the benchmark.
Yeah.
So, if a child is, I would say, obese, like, actually, look at them.
Yeah.
They look physically as if they're carrying too much weight and it might start to impact their health.
Yeah.
You have to look at the parents.
Yes.
And often the parents are on a larger size.
Yeah.
And yet they know what they're doing. How and that child will probably stay like that then. You get the odd one that becomes a sports fanatic, but often you see them in it's a family pattern, then it becomes a pattern of behaviour.
Yeah.
And it's in this sort of societal group that they're in. How do you reach those people?
Some of that's ignorance, right? Some of that is.
I disagree with you there.
I know you do, but what I'm saying is some of it is a little bit of ignorance, some of it's laziness, and some of it is that fact that
laziness. I agree with you on laziness.
Cheap food is usually shit. You know what I mean? That's my technical term for the day. It's shit. The sort of stuff, farm foods, Iceland, all those places that are.
But you can buy cheap whole foods, but you have to prep it yourself. That's the difference. Cheap, ready-made food suits the lazier personality. If you've got it, you can buy vegetables are quite cheap, and like an onion's 27p. If you bought an onion and it doesn't have to be organic, but basic chicken breasts and some herbs and spices, you could make a curry that is far healthier for you, probably for the same price as 3 ready meal curries from Iceland, out of the freezer. I don't always agree that it's a cost thing, but it definitely, the effort has to go into making the curry, and people don't want to do that. So I do think that could be a lazy element rather than just getting it out of the freezer and putting it in the oven or the microwave.
Yeah.
I eat good food, and bizarrely, the things that we go, wow, that was really tasty, are often the things that are actually quite cheap. It's just what you do with them and the time that's go into them and the extra little things.
Yeah.
So I think it's a time factor, definitely. And I call them my arse factor.
Yeah, well, you know, people can't be bothered sometimes, can they? Or stressed, or there's all sorts of different reasons that propel people to eat the wrong foods. But
and I think it's definitely, for me, if you treat it, not that I love cooking every day, but there are times when I really enjoy cooking, and you can taste the difference. If someone has made something that's enjoyed it, they've made it with love, and they're looking forward to eating it, it tastes better than something that's just shoved in and shove it down your gullet.
I think a lot of it's mindfulness.
Yeah.
I think it's being mindful, Lisa, as well. I think that we get in we're going to work, we're picking the kids up, we're dropping the kids off, we're doing this, we've got to go and pick up mum and take her to shops and whatever, all the things that are on us in life to achieve, and that constantly going. Some of it is like, you know, you get into like me, for example, getting my shopping just now. I go onto Sainsbury's and go click, 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 last week's shop, blah, 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 and then it arrives at the door a few hours later. People just do that, and you get into this sort of routine. And even with eating, you get into this routine, because I've done it myself, and I wouldn't consider myself lazy, whatever, but I've got into a place where, oh, it's just shove that in there because you've got so many things to juggle. You shove it in and then you eat it. And then half an hour later you think, I'm hungry. I didn't, because you can't remember eating it because it's all on automatic pilot. We all need to slow down, make more of an effort, sit down at the table, have a few more veggies, you know, with whatever we're having, with a nice chicken breast or whatever.
And I think that, again, is in a family group, if the parents don't eat vegetables, the children won't have ever tried them. No. Like they say, I don't like them, and they haven't tried them. And I think, no, that's about responsibility. There's ignorance and laziness, but there's also irresponsibility in that same thing, because it is your responsibility as a parent to introduce your child to as many foods, I think, in a really stress-free way, like not like cracking the whip way, and then they grow up to enjoy a broader variety of foods. But we all know this, so at what point then do you intervene?
Don't know.
And that's probably another problem, deciding whether it's a disease or an actual psychological problem, and then at which point do you intervene? Is it going to be if you weigh more than this, or if they go to BMI and that can be as horrendously wrong? At what point do you say they have to draw a line, and they have, you know, postcode lottery again? At what point will we undertake to spend this amount of money stopping those people getting to the point where they have multiple illnesses and can have surgery? Because it is prevention, but then they've got to know where to start to step in to start the prevention, the intervention.
Yes. I don't know that answer, because...
Oh, you need some more answers.
I'm sorry, I'll get some. I'm just going to go and get some. They're in the bag outside. I think with the telly and everything, none of us can feign ignorance as much as...
laziness. I think you're right, it's laziness.
Sometimes, yeah, I think it is laziness.
A bit of budget, I'll give you that. Yeah,
a bit of budget. And some, like, if you've always grown up having farm foods, pizza and chicken nuggets and chips, and that's how you've been brought up, mind you, I can't think that's ignorance, because you watch telly, you must be able to see... Unless you go around with your head in a bubble and only ever watch Coronation Street, you must watch the occasional MasterChef or some program where they're trying to eat healthy, you know. And like I know so much about nutrition, and that's just from watching the TV, knowing that, you know, low carbs, good veg, good quality foods, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know where you intervene, and then people have their freedom of choice.
Yeah, and I think that's the difficulty. That's why they're saying should. If they start saying will,
well, no, because I still think they should, or they need to look into it more, find out more before they just go blanket it, because it could be split off into different sections, and some sections are easily rectified and can turn the tide, and some are more difficult. It's, you know, it's categorizing them. You can't just blanket it all under obesity and go, yeah, it's too big for us to fix.
Well, I think if they were really that bothered, why do they allow any adverts rather than saying change them to the watershed? Why allow any of them?
Because they probably get paid for
Yes,
them.
but if they were that bothered, they'd forego that money, wouldn't they?
We were in a world obsessed by money.
If they were that bothered about high sugar foods, they wouldn't tax them, they'd ban them.
Yeah.
It's really easy. They go, oh, we've got freedom of choice. Well, okay, then, you know, it's for your health we're doing this, and then it'll have to become an enforced health regime. But that's the difficulty, that there are people, like, I'll eat things, I eat what I like. I eat healthily, I'd say 80-20. 80% I'm really good. It's gluten-free, dairy-free, whole foods, and whatever. Mostly boring shite. And then the 20% is really nice. Cakes, chocolate.
Yeah, but you say that, but you have gluten-free stuff as well. Like you say cakes, but they're gluten-free.
Mostly. Yeah. I'm not religious about it because life's too short and that's really boring. But, you know.
It's having a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's wrong with people who have got that.
I understand freedom of choice, but you don't need freedom of choice of advertising after 9 o'clock.
No, you don't. Just ban it all. But they're all about money. So how are you going to stop them being about money? And, you know, if they get paid like hundreds of pounds, like to, you know, these politicians get paid hundreds of pounds to do stupid things like, I don't know, just to have lunch with someone, they get paid to do that, don't they? This sort of bullshit. Then that money's got to come from somewhere, or they get paid to use their car or ridiculous things, don't they?
Yeah.
They get paid all these extra monies. That's got to come from somewhere. So I guess it's not in their interest to change things too radically, is it?
No, and that's why it's a document full of shoulds. Yeah, we should be, but we're not going to.
Well, we need to blow up the Houses of Parliament. It's not been done before. We need to do something radical.
I'm not going to London, mate. I really aren't. I can't stand the place. If you go.
I'll do it. Yeah. It's always me, isn't it? It's always me that's got to do this stuff.
I've done my time in London, as have you. I much prefer.
I have. I'm not going back there. I might go to the Houses of Parliament, though, and hold up a placard or burn me bra. That would be a big fire. Or chain myself to the railings.
You'd probably get arrested nowadays, actually, wouldn't you? The same as in those days.
Yeah, but you'd get some publicity from it, wouldn't you? It would go viral.
Well, there you are then. The universe just delivered you your next step.
My next assignment, should I choose to accept it.
So.
Right, well, I suppose
we're no further forward, really.
It's gin o'clock.
It is. We're no further forward, are we? We haven't really resolved it.
Well, we're not politicians, but we're just bringing it out there for other people to raise the awareness.
So I think then what will be good is we'll put a link to that document under the video.
Definitely.
People can read it for themselves. There's another one that I found, which is, I can't remember the name of it at the minute, it's on my laptop. It's from more on the nutrition and the BMI side and why they don't want to classify it as a disease. It's sort of balancing that up. So that was quite interesting reading. So I'll send you that as well.
Okay.
You know, I can see it on both sides. One takes away the responsibility, and
no, I get it. I get it. And because when you're like that, that's all you want is someone to take the blame for it.
Yeah.
Or to put it somewhere on a hook. Oh, it's because of that, and hook it on there and leave it. That's what you want to do. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And then if people want to read your journey, they can get your book on Amazon.
The Last Supper.
The Last Supper, the truth about weight loss surgery.
And if they want to learn about nutritional deficiencies and B12 deficiencies, they can get your book, which is
Love Yourself Back to Health.
Also on Amazon.
Amazon, yeah. And then your website is...
How long have you got? www.thetruthAboutWeightLossSurgery.com.
And your Facebook group...
You're just doing this on purpose now. Is the Emotional Side of Weight Loss Surgery Support Group. And yours?
www.lspexperience.com, and that's lifestyle coaching. And then LSP Experience on Facebook.
See, how did we get to be friends? Mine are 5 pages long and yours like LSP.
Because I ain't got time. I'm tired. You got too much time on your hands with titles like that.
I'm terribly sorry.
Right then.
So end up. Do you want to do the end?
Yeah, I'll do the end. Thanks everybody for watching this conversation about obesity and a little bit about weight loss surgery and anorexia and politicians.
Excellent. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.